Hi, I'm Gerry from Gerry's Craft Room, and in this video I'm going to make two cards with a sea theme in a mixed media style. I start with applying 3 colors Distress Oxide ink straight to my desk. By the way, I added the products I used in the description box below, and if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. I sprayed some water and then I'm going to dip in the watercolor paper. This is a great way to add color and texture to your page. I have another piece of watercolor cardstock to dip in the leftover ink, and this is more a color mix, but it will work great as a first layer. You can add 1 or more layers until you like the result. Dry in between the colors to get more layering and depth. I dry the pages and add more color in the same way. And this is the result after drying. I'm going to add some splatters. I have I think it's a pig hair brush. It's not too soft but also not too hard. I add ink to my acrylic block and spray some water, and then I dip in my brush and then I move my finger along the bristles in the direction I want to add the ink. You can test this on a scrap piece of paper if you like, so you know a little bit what you can expect and how it moves. You can blot any bigger splats or just let them dry too. I ink the edges of the cards with the ink I also used for the background. I'm going to stamp with the Tumbled glass ink. I'm going to add some water plants at the bottom. I use the stamp tool so I can repeat the stamping on the same place to get a deeper color. And while you are here, have you seen the new community tab at the top? I will share new and fun things there, like behind the scenes, polls and such, so you can go check that out if you like. I stamped and fussy cut the fish on a sticky note a few times so I can use it as a mask. And I'm going to stamp the fish a bunch of times, using the mask to block the previous fish. I add some water bubbles and add clear embossing powder and melt them with the heat tool. And then I color the bubbles with the same ink and a dry fine brush, and I add clear embossing powder again and melt them to make it glossy. I did that with all the bubbles. I colored the water plants with a dry brush and ink, giving them a distressed look. I colored the fish group with alcohol markers, and the colors of the oxide ink shined through a bit, giving the fish multiple colors. I find the middle fish a bit gloomy, and I will fix that in a bit. First I'm going to add water plants at the bottom. I colored a piece of watercolor card with tumbled glass and then cut the plants. I stamped the fish on ultra smooth cardstock and I color it with alcohol markers. I'm not a coloring expert, I'm just coloring for fun, and the great thing with alcohol markers is you can add the next color and go over it with the previous color, light over darker, and they blend beautifully without any effort. And then I fussy cut the fish and I added foam tape on the back and I added to the card, and this looks way happier than the first fish. I add some more water plants colored with shimmer powder, and this gives a nice shimmer combined with the chalky look from the oxide inks. I distress the edges of the card with the side of my scissors. I stamp the sentiment with a hand lettering stamp and I ink the edge so it isn't too white, and then I add it to the card. For the next card I stamped a seahorse and a whale and colored them also with the alcohol markers. For the seahorse I used the apricot ombre set, starting with the light color and then to darker, blending again with the lighter color. And for the whale I used greys and blues. It's a blue whale of course, and I wanted to give it a bit of a distress look, so I kind of doodle color it. I don't know if that's a technique, if not then it is now. I started with outlining the outside with the darker grey and blue colors, and I just scribble a bit with the darker blue, and then I used the light grey to blend the color. I add a bit of the darker grey and blend it again with the light color. I fussy cut the seahorse and the whale, and I added the card I colored in the beginning to a blue note card, and I'm going to add some water plants I cut and colored with the shimmer powder. I put the whale and the seahorse on the card to see where I want the water plants, and easiest to add the water plants is to do this before you add it to a card, like I did with the first card. And I stamped a bunch of the water plants on both sides, also like I did on the first card, but I wanted the card sideways and I actually like the effect. I'm going to stamp the sentiment, so I measure it with the whale again, and I'm going to stamp it with the stamping tool so I can get a deep black color. I added foam tape on the back of the whale and the seahorse, and I'm going to add them to the card. I put a frame on the card to measure where I want to add some more water plants, and I add them with foam tape to create some more dimension. I add a frame with the foam tape in place so I can add my water plants. I hope you liked the video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and make sure to keep on crafting!